it was just a different world now, where now we have students at 10, 11, 12 years old with a supercomputer in their pocket, and they don't even know how to use it. My wife was a school secretary for a while, and kids in second and third grade coming into school with smartphones. I have a second grader. I wouldn't let my 8-year-old son Levi take my smartphone to school if he gave me all the money in his piggy bank, which isn't much, but I would never let him take it because he's not equipped to handle such a tool. He has no idea what he's doing. And so in our world, it is very easy to allow that which we seem unfamiliar with and that which maybe culturally moving, our culture might be moving in a particular direction, to just kind of throw our hands up and say, I don't know, phooey with all of it. And that's where many people are. Many of you maybe have used the GIF on your phone where the man is throwing his computer into the garbage can. And that's where many of you feel like that may be how you are with technology. And if that's how you feel at the end of tonight, I have failed. That's not what I want you to think of or to understand. I want us to see that we have a sovereign God who is in control of all things. We have a God who is not surprised by the invention of a smartphone and by the addition of one. He is a more loving father and parent than any of us. And many of us may begin to feel guilt or shame, maybe based on decisions that you've made or things that you've seen in the world. And that would be the last thing I would want. This is designed to inform. This is designed to equip you with faith, never to instill fear, because we are not given to fear. We should be people of faith. So this material is not intended to scare anyone. You are equipped. If you are a parent or a grandparent in this day and age, you are equipped because God has uniquely chosen and equipped you for this moment. It's not an accident. We need to recognize that God has uniquely given us the ability to be here in this time. And so we can, if we follow God rightly, do this. Now, my brother is been formally involved with an organization called Protect Young Eyes for several years now. He is their COO and one of their main speakers. And I am familiar with their material. And so I just want to recommend to you their app. And you can scan that QR code and download it. And I'm not sure exactly how it gives you the information it gives you, but it will give it to you if you scan it. So if you scan that, that can show you the PYE app. I would highly recommend downloading that. It is full of resources there's articles on everything and anything, any new technology that comes out. There will be an article written about it. Any new video gaming system that comes out, any new popular trend or anything, they're going to have something written about it. And I would highly recommend you read it. And again, this is just, it is a good thing to have resources. And that's, again, one of the things that I want to do is not to equip you or lead you to fear, but to equip you with faith, with understanding, and with resources, because that's just what we need. We just need to be aware of the resources that have been made available to us so that we are able to do this well. So this is just a little thing that sometimes is helpful. Maybe test your abilities and your knowledge on apps. Any recognize any of these apps that are up here? I recognize a couple. The pickaxe is what? Minecraft, right? I'll say some of my boys up here are going to know what this is, right? So how about the yellow ghost square? Yeah, say it louder if you know it. Snapchat, all right. What about the blue little handheld looking alien guy right over here? So you know what this one is? That's Discord. Nice, well done. Discord is where Josiah and I talk about class. That's what we have a Discord page there. What about the T-looking music note, the black one right up there? TikTok. What about this square? You don't know that one? That one is Roblox. Have you heard of Roblox before? Roblox is currently it's being debated in the House or the Senate in Florida as being banned as an entire game because the highest concentration of sexual predators on the internet are in the chat rooms of a Roblox game. A game that is advertised to children. And that's the game that that's our world would say they should be playing. It's just something you need to be aware of. That something like that seems to be innocent, right? A game that is advertised for children is the single highest concentration of child predators on the internet. And so again, terrifying, but not something we need to be afraid of, right? We need to realize that, So don't entertain it, right? That's just one of those things we can step away from and say, we're not interested in that. So now that you're warmed up, your brain's working. We're going to be looking at maybe the right way to ask questions. Just this thing is being a little fidgety with me up here. It's not working super well. Is there a way I can point it to? Over you, towards you? All right, there we go. All right, oftentimes we ask ourselves these questions, right? And maybe you guys have asked them yourself. When should I get my kid a phone, right? Or grandkid or any of these things. When should they get a gaming console? My children just got their first Nintendo Switch for Christmas this year. And so what do we do with that, right? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Is that a religious thing? Is it an amoral thing? Who knows, right? We ask all these questions. When should children be allowed on social media? And we often look for these ages and we want to have a system that just fits and say, if I could just get to this number and this thing, then that's going to make me fine. And I just want to say, maybe we're asking the wrong question when it comes to tech. Maybe those aren't the right questions. Maybe the right question is, what decisions regarding tech will give my child the most opportunity for a healthy childhood? That's probably a better question because that gets out of law and gets into wisdom. That gets out of a strict, rigid system and looking in love and knowledge of my particular child and saying, how do I best equip them for a healthy childhood? Because again, it may look different. Your children, much like mine, are probably at different maturity levels. Even though their age may be similar, their maturity might be different. And so it can't be about just a particular law or rigid rule. At the age of 16, I wasn't ready for a phone, but my sisters all were. I have 4 older sisters, and all of them were far more mature than I was at 16. But if you've given me a smartphone at the age of 16, it would have been very damaging because I wasn't mature enough yet. So we got to ask the right question. It's not what law can I have to rigidly apply to all people, but what will give my child the best opportunity or the most opportunity for a healthy childhood. So we're going to look here at just what I would just call the 5 habits of a tech healthy home. And these are laid out here. I am a Baptist pastor by vocation, so I like acronyms. Acronyms just fit nicely with me. So we're going to look at these in the form of habit, right? So we're starting off with H there, which is hold fast to God, not idols. A, apply common knowledge and biblical truth to technology. B, build a safe place for communication and trust. I, implement internet and technology-free seasons into the rhythm of your family. And T, take time to learn about tech before you give it to your children. So we're going to break these down one at a time. This is not rocket scientists. We're not reinventing the wheel here. It's just taking what we already know to be true and applying it to something that we may think is beyond or new. If we can remember we have a sovereign God and that there's nothing new under the sun, then technology becomes not something to be afraid of, but just our generation's hurdle that we need to prepare ourselves for and to set up the next generation for success. So if this can be a part of our households, we could take this as our habit, as it were, then we can see that there will be health when it comes to the usage of technology. So the first one here, holding fast to God and not idols. Right? You might say, why talk about idolatry? I signed up to come look about or learn about technology. Well, as you guys are part of the E412 movement, and as I know as I've talked with Pastor Andrew and others around it, we know that our problems are not external. And if you're not aware, I just want to inform you, the greatest problem that we have with technology is not that a phone exists. It's that the sin in our heart wants to make an idol out of what is here. It sees an opportunity for the flesh, just like Paul talks about that. The sin that is inside of me is stirred up and it sees an opportunity. And so we can see that this technology thing here cannot just be left at some distant thing, but must be understood. We first have to look at it as the great temptation that it is, which is to create something that is an idol. So we first must hold fast to God and not idols. Idols are anything that we will sin to get or anything that we will sin to keep. And you guys know this if you have ever seen children around an iPad or around a phone or even your own selves. You can see the magical rectangle, as I like to call it, comes out. And so do the fangs when someone else gets it and I don't, right? They begin to fight over, well, I wanted this and you didn't get that. And then blah, 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 right? It happens every time, whether it's over that or whether it's grandma and grandpa showing them pictures of their vacation on the phone, like moths to a flame. Here they come, right? And they want to stare at it. And then you see they're willing to physically assault their brothers and sisters to get to the screens, sooner than the other person, or they're willing to sin to get it. I know of a young man who was given a smartphone and ended up struggling with pornography, a devastating epidemic in our culture. And he was given a smartphone, and his parents put all the locks on it that you could imagine: covenant eyes, Apple restrictions, everything under the sun that you could lock that phone down, everything you could do. I helped them get most of it in charge, so it was good stuff. And that young man would take that phone, he would request permission to get covenant eyes taken off, sneak down to his parents' room while they were sleeping, get their phone, grant himself permission, then take the phone with him, do what he was going to do with his phone, go back down, re-add it, go back down to his parents' room, delete all the text messages, add it back on, charge the phone, put it back down. What law, what rule stops that sin? Do you have one for me? That's why it's idolatry. It's an enslaving entity. You say, well, that's not the phone, but the phone is the vehicle to which to get the sin. Therefore, the phone then takes on this idyllic style, right? You look back into the Old Testament. Why did they worship Baal and Ashtoreth? Because Baal and Ashtoreth were to give them what they needed: farmed, they needed food from their farms, and they needed babies from their wives. And they believed Baal and Ashtoreth were the fastest way to get the two things they wanted. So it's the same concept. Ours are now just filled with microchips, not metal. But it's the same thing because it's the same human heart. It's the same thing. So idols are anything we're willing to sin to get or we're willing to sin to keep. Idols are things that our thoughts revolve around. Right? In biblical counseling, we'll often walk people through a chart that we just ask them the simple question: why do we do what we do? We do what we do because we want what we want. Right? My actions are completely and utterly tied to my heart's desires. Right? James 4 tells us that. Why are there fights and why are there quarrels among you? Is it not this, that your passions are at war within you? Right? It's this internal struggle that we have, our passions that are at war within us. So why do we do what we do? Because we want what we want. Well, why do we want what we want? Because we think what we think. Our intellect is stirred towards things that we believe to be true or not. We make value judgments based on what's better or what's worse. And what shapes that is our true core belief. So why do we think what we think? Because we believe what we believe. At the core of ourselves, if we do not believe that God and glorifying God is far more important than anything else, then we will use anything and everything that we can to worship something else other than God. Anything and everything can become an idol because of our sinful hearts. And so we have to look and say, what do my thoughts revolve around? What do I think about when I go to bed and when I wake up? Why do you think so many people sleep with their phones right by their beds? It's the fastest thing to do before I go to bed. Doom scroll a little bit, wake up. What does my brain want? It wants another dopamine hit from my phone. Who texted me? What likes do I have? What posts do I have? What new reels are out there? It creates this whole environment that our brains are nonstop thinking about what can I have next. So we have to recognize first and foremost the condition of the human heart and our propensity to worship things not named God before we can have anything of a healthy conversation around technology. It has to start with us. Otherwise, out of fear and not faith, we remove the very things that God can be using, like technology, to bless people. There are other churches that are watching this right now because of technology. As I was talking with Pastor Manmore, and he said, a lot of people are going to be joining online tonight. I said, that's funny. I'm here to talk about technology and the dangers of it to a bunch of people that I'm talking to via technology, because it can be used for good. It absolutely can be. Anything that, a lot of the things, many things that we have in our world are not in and of themselves bad, but it is the sin inside of us that will take them and twist them out of God's plan and purpose for them, and we will use them for ourselves. So we first must understand that we have to hold fast to God and flee from idols, or to run from idols, so that we can rightly position ourselves under the will of God, under the authority of God, under true knowledge of who God is and who man is, then we can begin to have a conversation about what should we do with the magic rectangles that are in our pockets. If we don't start with that, we're off from the beginning. Because we're going to get to phones and we're going to say, do all these legalistic, law-based strategies. And if you just put all the right pieces into place, you will protect yourself and everyone you love from the evil danger outside of them. One of the worst things we can do is to convince ourselves and our children that the most dangerous forces are outside of them, not the sin that lies in their heart, because then they're a victim and everyone else needs to move around them. We need to be convinced of this first. All right, so then parents, if we are going to have a tech healthy home, the first thing that must be done is that we must model healthy tech use before we would ever expect our children to. Men, especially men, husbands, we cannot lead our families where we are not spiritually. We cannot lead our families to healthy tech use if our hearts are tuned to the idol of our phones or of whatever game comes on TV. And again, hear me as a Lions fan, right? Love watching them every weekend. But how fast does a kid who you love become an annoyance because they're standing in the way of watching the third down run? Look at that. There it is. There's idolatry again, right? And what is the idea? I want my life to be easy. No one is supposed to ask me of anything when I want what I want. What's feeding that, right? I'm a consumer of something, right? And we're going to talk about that. We just have to rightly position ourselves. So we must model healthy tech use before we expect anything from our children. As we know from parenting, more is caught than taught. Your children learn more from watching you than they do from listening to you, because we know, no offense to any children watching or listening, we don't always listen to our parents super well, but we do watch them. And we see what they value and we see what's important to them. And then we begin to model ourselves after that behavior. So parents, we must first, if we want to have a life that is holding fast to God and that is running away from the idol that technology can become, we must show kids that tech is just a tool. Your phone and a hammer are essentially the same thing if we are going to look at them rightly. You would never carry around a nail gun with you everywhere that you go, because a nail gun has a particular time and place where it is effective. It can be very dangerous outside of its particular time and place. So can a smartphone. We began to, now that I'm later on in my student ministries career here, and as I've learned more about this, we take our cell phones away from our youth group students on all of our events we go on. We put them in a box. And it keeps away from them, because I walked into my cabin one night on a retreat and one of the boys in my youth group was FaceTiming one of the girls in the other cabin. And I had never bumped into that because we had always encouraged them to stay away from it. We had one kid who made one call. All it takes is a camera to be flipped around, and now all of a sudden we have a boy seeing what the girls are doing inside their cabin, or likewise. You got to realize, we have to say tech is just a tool. It's not anything that you should just keep around with you at all times. It's not something you should be using at all times. It is a tool that has a proper place at a proper time. And that tool is not appropriately used in the dark when you're alone. It's not a good time to use that tool. Much like a chainsaw is great to cut down trees, you never floss your teeth with it, right? That could be very detrimental. So a tech is a tool. It has a time and a place that it's appropriate. It has a time and a place where it is not appropriate. Right? So we can see that we need to show our kids that this technology is just a tool. We need to understand, as we're talking about this, right? This idea that Protect Young Eyes will often talk about is modeling the right behaviors, right? What would you want to use? Would you want your children to use phones the same way that you do? Would you say that the way I do it is exactly what's right? Not only what I use it for, but where I use it and what I use it for, how I use it. So we're going to hold fast to God, not idols. We need to remember something that's true about idols, that idols promise us something they can never give us. And tech can do the same thing. Technology, even something like AI, can become godlike in our minds, something we are tempted to worship. And again, not like you're bowing down to a Buddha, but that we worship with our hearts. Technology can promise us fame, friendship, and a sense of self-worth, but it can't actually give that to us. I had a friend of mine in Bible college who, I learned this about her and I was a little disappointed, but she would post a picture to her Facebook, and if it did not get enough likes, she would take it down and put it back up, because then that would put it back up to the top of everyone's news feed, and then more people would have an opportunity to like it. And when I heard her say that, I said, I don't know if you can even hear yourself. Like that seems crazy to me. But that just shows there is an identity that that can only be seen and valued if someone else tells me I have value. And I must make sure that everyone sees me and gives me value by clicking a fake button. What does that begin to tell someone about their worth and their value? And what does that tell them about when the Bible says your identity is in Christ? They say, no, it's not, because Christ doesn't give me the instant gratification that my screen does. We got to be careful. These things can promise us something that they can never give us. But as parents, it's equal for us too. As parents, we must check our own hearts and how we post about our kids in this way. Our kids can become an idol, and how our family looks on social media can be the biggest idol of them all. What are we posting about our children? What are we posting about ourselves? Are we posting, no one posts the shot where, one kid's finger is up the other kid's nose and the other kid's not looking and the dad's yelling and the mom's doing this. No one posts that one to social media. We post the picture 2 seconds later where everyone's happy. Right? How many times has the conversation been in the car on the way to church? You guys did, and then they walk into church happy. Right? Because we begin to put a false image of ourselves out there. We want other people to validate that false image about ourselves, so maybe we'll begin to believe it ourselves. Social media is a great, as in it has the potential to do this in a large way, a way of worshiping that idol of self. Tech promises us rest, but will never satisfy. I don't know how many of you guys have done this, but maybe you have, where you've sat down, you've taken out your phone and you've thought, I'm just going to sit here for a moment. I'm just going to relax, scroll on social media, check the news, whatever it is. And you end up doom scrolling for a really long, probably longer than you wanted to. Where you're just looking at picture after picture after picture, reading news story after news story. And then you put your phone down and you're no more rested than you were than when you started. Because it actually is working physiologically against what you want. You are looking for something to relax your mind, and the very thing you're doing is something that is tuning your mind to want something more. It is not a satisfactory thing. You are chasing after something that is, by definition, making you want more of that thing. And not in a healthy way. Not in the way that when we learn more about God, we want to learn more about him. Not in a good way like that, but in a way of I have to have more, I have to have more, I have to have more. And I have to have more. So then we need to realize then tech will promise us rest. And we may think if I just give my kids phones, or if I just give my kids iPads, then we're going to have rest as a family. We have to fight against that, to realize that our kids are better served by a life filled with in-person interaction. Being involved in a church, being involved in your family, being involved in a community. Whether if you homeschool, being involved in a homeschool group so that your kids are out in the real world with real people, learning that real relationships are far more valuable than the ones that they have online. There's an article that I shared with Pastor Andrew about AI companions that PYE recently put out, and I might mention it here in a minute. But AI companions are intended to take the place of real friends in these people's lives. Sadly, they found a young man who had committed suicide, and they opened up his computer, and his AI companion had encouraged him to do it. This is what is out there. That's very scary. But we just need to be aware and to know what Replica is, and to know what these other apps are, just to say, okay, I'm aware of that. I have my eyes out for that. So if anyone I know or anyone I love is interacting with this, I can warn them to say, hey, be careful. That's fake. That's not a real relationship. God has made a real world with real relationships, which are much more satisfying. Our kids are better served not only with in-person interaction with family, but a life filled with the reality of God's creation. Right? We look and we see God's beauty all around us, but he reveals not only the greatness of his character, but a way in which he has ordered the world, that he shows us through the creation that we can kind of want to make a world after our own making when we are in screens. We have a very algorithmic, focused and catered thing that we take in at all times. And God's saying, I want you to see me in my world and in my creation. There's something far greater out in the real world that God has created. This is why teenagers shouldn't be on their phones late at night. That's not what we're meant for. There's a reality in God's world. There's a reality that says it's not good for you to have something that you are using to compare yourself, or something that can be tuning your heart to false worship alone in a room at night when you're an impressionable age. That's not smart. That goes against what God has revealed in his created order, in the way that our families are supposed to operate, right? Proverbs 18:1 warns us of the danger of isolation, right? Whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire. He breaks out against all sound judgment. Screens force you into isolation because it's better to be on my phone in a world that I can create and I can do this. So again, if you're saying, I want to go throw all my screens away, that's not what I'm teaching you towards. That's not what I'm leading you towards. It's just be aware of what we need to be aware of and to fight against the worst parts of us that technology may be bringing out. God has taught us through his created order that it is good for men to be men and for women to be women, and that there is goodness in both of those things, in maleness and femaleness. And so God has created this world that we need to teach our children to enjoy and to see in reality, so that when they go on to maybe an internet world and they hear men can be women and women can be men, they can recognize this as fake and say, no, that's not real. The world my God has created is real. But far too often what happens is they begin into this technological world where that becomes real, and the real world that God has made becomes fake. We have to teach them there's something better about this reality that God has made. We need to teach ourselves that too. Because again, more is caught than taught. So if they're acting that way, what does that tell us about what we've set the example of as an older generation? We got to be careful too. So then we need to apply common knowledge and biblical truth to technology. Tech is relatively new, but the same wisdom principles still apply. 1 Corinthians 6:12 says, all things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful for me, but this is really important. I will not be dominated by anything. Tech is new, but in the way we which are to utilize it is not new. The way we apply scripture to technology is crucial. We can and should partake in technology, but we ought not to be dominated by anything. Technology does have a dominating factor, though. It begins to overwhelm our lives. Technology has this way of doing it. YouTube sends you down spirals. TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram get you scrolling. Men and women spend hundreds of hours a year on video games that accomplish them nothing. So it can be all consuming, and we need to say, no, I want to be dominated by nothing. Is tech sinful? No. But I need to make sure I'm not dominated by it. I ought to be dominated by nothing but an all-consuming passion for the glory of God. So when we apply basic wisdom, here's just some basic wisdom principles. Tech is given when maturity is seen, not a certain age. It baffles me regularly as a youth pastor to see how many parents fall into this weird trap that my kid's 18, therefore I can't parent them the same way anymore. It's as if at 17 years and 364 days, they are an incompetent little child who needs me every moment. And then they cross that 24-hour threshold and they are fully functional adults, and I have nothing more to say. When we describe it like that, we realize how silly that is. But how many of us feel that way? How many times have we seen that happen? We're godly Christian parents, but they're 18. What am I supposed to do? They're adults. 18, being an adult, is not the same thing. There is a maturity that needs to be recognized. There is an inner character, a virtue that one must have. And we recognize that in society. We also need to recognize that very, very common sense thing when it comes to technology. Technology is given when there is maturity. And those bits of technology can be taken away if that maturity is just a facade, right? If that maturity just becomes something that they put on to get what they wanted, well, then we can take that away really fast because, again, parents are parents, not kids. We get to set the tone for that. It's our job to shepherd our child's heart, to say, no, you're not ready for that. And I'm sorry if that frustrates you, but I am not here for your happiness. I am here for your holiness. And if you are not going to be holy with that smartphone in your hand, I don't care how much you cry, I will take it away. We have to. It's not an option. Tech is given when maturity is seen, not at a certain age. This is a privilege to be earned, not a privilege that is assumed. It's something that is earned. So tech is given when maturity is seen, not at a certain age. You need to create a family plan for technology, right? The who, what, where, when, why, and how of tech. So who gets to use technology? What technology do we allow? Where do we allow it? When do we use it? Why do we use it? That all important question. Why would we even have this? Why do I have a smartphone to begin with? Is it just because everyone else does? Sometimes I look at those jitterbugs and I think that's not bad. Half the time, no one would be able to reach me. And I would kind of like that idea. So why do we even have it? What is it for? If our purpose in all of life is to glorify God and enjoy him forever, where does the smartphone fit into that? When are we asking ourselves these questions as parents, as grandparents, as individuals ourselves? We need to ask this. Why do I even use this? And the all important how. How am I going to use this to glorify God? Because if I ask myself that question, I have now set parameters on what I can and can't do. But if I just say this is mine to use as I want, now there's a whole open door. But if I have a limiting factor that says I will only use this thing to glorify God, now a lot of options are just completely taken off the table. That's a mom and a dad's responsibility. Right? So it's not only this, but having a home for all tech at night and during family time. Right? Family time, shouldn't have phones out for family time. That's not family time. Unless sometimes in my family time, that involves me playing Mario Kart with my children and me beating my children in Mario Kart because they need to learn how to lose. That's what I tell myself. That's family time, right? So can I utilize this for family time? Absolutely, because we're having a ton of fun doing it. That's a great thing to do. The kids come home from school early on a Wednesday, have an early release, and we tell them, guys, we're going to go play Nintendo. Yeah, right? Oh, it's so much fun. But I would never say, take the Switch, go in your room and shut the door. Because that's not a family, is it? We are now isolated. We don't want isolation. We want to be together. So if there's family time, moms and dads first, phones don't come out. You may say, but I got to call. No, if it's family time, that needs to go away. If your work and your business and all the things that you have are constant interruption on family time, then you need to ask, why is it that I'm willing to lay aside family for something else? What is better? What is a higher calling in my life? So there may be reasons, there may be exceptions. I fully understand that. I'm a pastor's kid. I knew the look on my dad's face when it was the funeral home or someone from church calling because a loved one had died. We understood. But if it's a constant interruption, what does that tell your kids about family time? Family time is important for you, but it's not for me. I get to do what I want. Shouldn't be surprised when kids don't get it then. So we have a home for tech, having a place where they sleep, as it were, or where they eat during family time, a charging station. Easy enough for me now with small children. My kids, the tablets that they have, and yes, they have them, they all sit up in a top shelf, or even if they got the tallest ladder that they can carry, they couldn't get to it. Right? And they're there, and guess what? They're all password locked, and they can't get to them unless I have them first. That's the way it goes. It's not that hard because we introduced that rule when they got it. So if we just give uninterrupted and unfettered access, and then we have to pull it away, then that's where it becomes complicated. But if we hold back what we give, and when we give with wisdom, and we give with parameters, then that's the understood practice. So we have a home. All devices need to have monitoring software. This is a non-negotiable. It's amazing how much now that Androids and Apple devices now come preloaded with so many bits of software monitoring. It's almost, if the secular world has recognized how dangerous an unfettered smartphone is to a child, the church should have realized that a long time ago. But sadly, even some of our smartphone companies are picking that up before us as Christians are. That's a shame to us. We need to be more careful with that. Most Amazon devices come with monitoring capabilities in the Kids app. I can pull up my phone right now and I can show you in the Amazon Kids app how much time in each app my child is playing. My youngest son, Joey, age 4, likes to play the Minion Rush, where you run with minions. I don't know why he loves it so much, but that had the highest screen time when I checked it earlier today. And that's what he likes to do, right? And again, he gets that for the little bit of time that he gets it, but guess what? I can put how much time I want him to have on that app. I can have permission, needs to be requested to my phone when any one of my children wants to download an app. Not that they're ever downloading them without me doing it, because I download all their apps. That's their rule. If you want an app, you come give a presentation to mom and dad about why you need that. And then we'll put it on for you. We're not going to be ridiculous, but you're going to come talk to me about that, because again, I should do that. I am their father. I am their protector. I should be wanting to know what they're doing on that screen. It should not be okay for me to say, I don't know what you're doing on there. I should know. I wouldn't want to show you their screen time right now because all 3 of my kids have the stomach flu. So I think their screen time is probably a little bit higher than normal because when your kids are vomiting, you just let them have a little bit of rest time in that way. But outside of that, they have limits on even that as well. All passcodes have to be known by parents. I know when you get into the teenage years, this is like, what? Invasion of privacy. Doesn't matter. Don't care, right? Mom and dad want to know your passcode to protect you, not because they don't trust you, but because they want to protect you. John MacArthur very famously never turned on a TV in his hotel rooms when he traveled. That's not because I don't think John MacArthur had a secret problem no one knew about. I think he was wise enough not to trust the sin in his own heart. It's just accountability. It's just wisdom to say, my children are not going to have something where they can access the internet that I don't know the passcode to. And the great way to start exemplifying that is that spouses have each other's. Right? If you and your spouse don't know the codes to each other's devices, that scares me. There should be that openness and honesty there that you can come in and look at my stuff whenever you want. Obviously, again, there's exceptions to the rule. But the general principle should be there that my wife should be able to take my phone at any time and I have no concerns. The same way that I should be able to take my kids and say, no, this is right for me to do this. Right? Again, and just a very basic thing, Protect Young Eyes asks this regularly. And I think this is one of the greatest clarifying and very simple questions or simple statements in the world. You wouldn't open up your front door to everyone coming off the street in the world. You would never do that. That's not safe, is it? Call anyone in the world, come into my front door whenever you want. Never would do that. So we should never allow our devices or technology to do the very same thing. Right, Roblox, basic game, you would think it would be fine. You could be inviting predators into your child's mind and into their world. Better be careful. We would never leave our front door open to leave our kids at home alone. So we should never leave an unchecked smartphone with our kids alone either. Right, so look at the power of place. Again, as Protect Young Eyes talks about a lot, where we use technology matters. So not in the bedroom, not in the bathroom, grandma and grandpa's houses, the school bus, sleepovers. These are places where you are not your best when you're using technology. We say this to my youth group students all the time. We do not want you to have them in this place, right? Darkness, boredom, and bedroom, right? You do those three things. Protect Young Eyes talks about this all the time. My brother has taught me on this. I hear him say it in my own head when he talks about it, right? We don't do this. We do this with our youth group students when we take their phones away and we tell their parents the same thing. A group of 12 teenage boys does not make good decisions on a smartphone at 12:30 at night. They rarely make good decisions when there's 12 teenage boys around, let alone when it's 12:30 at night with a smartphone. Their collective IQ drops precipitously when they get together. So B, building a safe place for communication and trust. As parents, this may be, all the other things have been about awareness for you. This one goes to your heart. Do you know for a fact that your kid would talk to you if they were exposed to something online? Do you know for a fact that if they saw something they weren't supposed to see, or if someone messaged them something they weren't supposed to read, that they could land with you and they'd be safe? Because that's the most important thing. There's a young man not that long ago in Rockford, which is where I live. My church is in Belmont, which is just outside of Rockford. A young boy who was going from 8th grade to 9th grade was a victim of something called sextortion, where someone will take either an unflattering picture or some inappropriate text messages that you maybe have sent, and they use that to extort you, to get money. A lot of times these are people in other countries that are using this, and they'll make you send gift cards. Otherwise, they say, I'm going to send this picture to all your friends and family. I've hacked your phone. Right? They lie to these kids and tell them what's going on. And this young man didn't know that the police were made aware of this, and they had found it was just another teenage boy who thought he was pulling a prank on him. And this young boy comes home one day and sees the police are all over his house, and he assumes he's in trouble, and he took his own life. Tragedy over something where you don't want to say mom and dad weren't there, but what goes on in the mind of a child when he realizes, when he misunderstands, right? You know this. Put yourself back when you're 13, 14 years old. You do not have the context for this. You do not even know what to do in this place. So you put yourself back in that and you say, man, does that thought process, have we talked about what to do in those situations? Do my kids know they could talk to me about anything that would happen, that they could bring this up to me and that I'm not going to freak out at them? I may freak out at the person who's doing it to them, but they are safe to talk with me about what just happened. Do they know? Beyond a shadow of a doubt, because when they don't, again, this child, there seems to be no reason to blame the parents, that their parents weren't super involved. That's why it was such a tragedy. But in that situation where there's a good kid and a good family, that's the outcome, then we need to be careful. Our homes must be full of grace and places where mistakes can be made and learned from. We have to remember, how does God treat us, right? Where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more, right? Jesus, he comes with grace upon grace. Are our homes places where grace just flows? Where we know where mistakes are made and there's a place where that's okay, right? It's not, there may be consequences from your actions, but there is grace. Paul David Tripp often will remind us, whenever your eyes see or your ears hear the sin, weakness, and failings of another, that's an opportunity for grace. So often we view it as an opportunity for law, for correction, for punishment. And grace may bring those things, but we need to have grace. We need to remind your children here, this next point, that it is good and right to be involved in their tech life, and that digital trust must be earned. It's good and right for you to be involved in their lives. It's the right thing to do. And then digital trust must be earned, as we mentioned. Tech is a maturity thing, not just a magical age number. So to teach your kids, if you're building a safe place for communication and trust, then as you do that, you teach these kids these steps. Look away. Something pops up on your phone you know you're not supposed to see. Look away, put the device down, go find mom and dad. Kids can learn that. It's very simple. It's kind of like stop, drop, and roll, right? You get that in there. I still don't know fully why that helps, but I do remember that from my kindergarten years. Stop, drop, and roll. Right? You begin to teach these basic principles to say, if you see something that you know mom and dad wouldn't want you to see, stop it, put it down, come find us. And again, Chris McKenna is the CEO of Protect Young Eyes. Someone I would highly recommend following them on social media, looking at their social media pages. They have a conversation piece that he talks about having 10 conversations, with your kids about pornography before they turn 10. So before they turn 10, that seems crazy. Well, it doesn't have to be a very graphic conversation. It could look like this. I did this with my children. Hey, Levi, Sophia, my two oldest. Have you ever seen anything on TV that you knew mom and dad would probably say isn't good? And my son, the very dutiful oldest, yes, dad. Right? I'm like, oh boy, I wasn't prepared for this conversation actually happening. So what happened? And he goes, well, I was watching. It was during one of the commercials of the football game. You had gone upstairs and a bunch of guys took their pants off. And I said, what? He goes, it was kind of weird, wasn't it? Isn't that weird? I said, that is weird. That's kind of silly. We're supposed to keep our pants on, aren't we? He's like, yeah, I don't want to see that again, right? So that's right. If that happens again, just look away. Does my kid have any idea of what I've just done? No. He doesn't know that I'm instilling in him, you have a safe place to talk to me when you see something on the computer or on TV that you're not supposed to see. But what am I building? There's just a communication. There's a conversation about this. So it's amazing that a week later, the game's back on and I'm sitting down and what do I see? Well, it's a commercial for America's Got Talent. And in the commercial for America's Got Talent, one of the acts was rather rotund men ripping their clothes off and dancing. So what my son saw was supposed to be a comedy act, a part of America's Got Talent, but in his mind, he knew I'm not supposed to see that. So when we saw it, we say, is that what you saw, buddy? Yeah, I shouldn't look at that, should we? Nope, turn the channel. There it is. Now we've had this conversation. Now my son's learning. I can talk to dad about it. It's okay to talk to dad about it. There are things I'm not supposed to see. At 7 years old, 6 years old, he can learn this, right? And so we can do this with our own children, our own grandchildren, all that kind of stuff. All right, so again, as I mentioned, 10 before 10, having this a normal conversation. That's a good and right thing for us to do. So implementing internet and technology-free seasons into the rhythm of your family. I had Pastor Andrew buy a couple copies did you get some back there? I thought I saw them of this book, Tech-Wise Family by Andy Crouch. I cannot recommend a book more highly when it comes to this topic than that one. Big fan of that book. I've read it multiple times in my previous church before I worked at West Canton. We bought a copy for every family in the church because I just believe in this is just something that's good to read. He recommends something the following with phones or with screens. He suggests that 1 hour a day, 1 day a week, and 1 week a year, you put away all technology. 1 hour a day, dinner time. You say, how do we do this for a whole hour? Dinner time. Say dinner is like 20 minutes. Make it an hour. Talk about your day. Do high lows. That's what we do. My kids sit down at the table. They say, high, low, buffalo. I don't know where the buffalo part came in, but apparently that's when you talk about a weird part of your day, an unexpected part, because a buffalo is a weird thing, apparently. So we do high, low, buffalo, right? And then that's a great opportunity to do it. Family devotions at the table. You just start to buy back the time that you have in a busy culture. Family time, dinner time, that's the time for us to be doing these things. 1 hour a day, 1 day a week, right? Make it on a Sunday. Make it your Sabbath day. You're going to church, you're already pretty busy. Put the phones away. You'll be okay, right? We did a whole week trip with our high school students on this. We call it our stay trip. We do local outreach trips all week. And they had their phones taken away for the whole week. And by the end of the week, we gave them their phones back. And you know what they did? They all put them in their pockets and went right back to talking to each other because they realized, I don't really want this anymore. Now, 3 weeks later, what were they doing? They're sitting in the corner on their phones. So we just said, hey, remember how good the stay trip was? Oh, yeah. They put it away, right? They learn. But a whole week, they didn't have it. And they were thrilled. They said, can we do this more often? I said, of course you can. Right? I think they don't even realize that they want to break from it. I think we just think, well, they're going to be, I don't know. My personal experience, I don't think so. I know how good it is for me to put my phone away for a day. Because guess what? The world spins without me. That's the great reality about being normal people like you and me, is the world was spinning before we got here, Lord willing, and then he tarries, right? It'll spin after we're gone. And so you can put your phone down for a whole day, and guess what? The world will spin, and you will be okay. Now, you may miss a lot on the group chat, but that's okay. Group chats are annoying, and you'll be just fine if you miss them. This is why we talk about heart idols first today. Is this possible? Yes, it is when you put it in the right context. You put it in the context of if we can't put something away for an hour a day, what do we call that? That's an idol. Got it. That's why we set the conversation right at the beginning so we can understand what it is that we're really dealing with. So having this, right? We want to create a home where tech is available but not necessary. Right? It's okay to have tech. It's just like a hammer. Hammers are great things. Nail guns are great things. Chainsaws are great things. Tools are good, but you have to have them in the right place. In our home, Friday nights, pizza and a movie night. Pizza and a movie night does not get missed. If we are ever gone or traveling on a Friday, my children revolt. Like, what do you mean we're not going to have pizza and a movie night? It has become our family's rhythm and our tradition and something that we all really look forward to because we sit down together as a family. And thankfully, as my children get older, we're not watching the same 5 to 10 Disney movies anymore. So now pizza and a movie night becomes more enjoyable for my wife and I as well, right? But that's the place where technology is available, but it's not necessary. We have TVs, they're there, but they're just a tool. They're just something that's there. Mom and dad's phones are there, but they're just something that's there. We want to give them things that Andy Crouch talks about in the book. In their home, they took out, they were so convicted of these things, they took out their TV and put a piano where it was. And they said, because we'd rather hear you, even if you're bad at it, playing music and creating than you always consuming. Right? And what are we doing? What are we building in our homes so that our homes are places where tech is available, but we can have fun without it? Video games, phones, these things are often seen as gateways to a better version of life. Right? That's why people play them. I think people obsess over games where they create a new world. And so we want to make our homes a place where reality is too good to miss. Why would I want to be on my phone when I know my mom and my dad are here and they're going to teach me and we're going to play together and we're going to have things that are fun to do outside. We're going to create, we're going to enjoy because God created and he made a world for us to enjoy. We're to glorify God and enjoy him forever. That's the whole purpose of man. And that's a great purpose. That's an adventurous purpose. That's a great thing to call people to and to call our children to. So don't be satisfied with sitting there mind numbing on a screen when there's a whole world that God has created for us to go out into. We can go out and we can see our life is so good that we don't want to miss out. Pornography and video games and social media are all easy masks to an idolatrous heart that desires escape and control. Social media becomes a comparison game. Video games become an escape from the real world in favor of a world where you're in control and one in which you are more successful in your own eyes. These things, they just promote in us that which is not good for us. All the time. Again, fan of Mario Kart. Don't want my kids doing that with their whole life, right? It's okay. We want to make it that it is not the only thing. It's not the best thing. It's not this thing that's held out that's this great mystery that if I can just get a little bit more of, I'd finally be happy. We want to make our home a place where reality is too good to miss, where again, we're fighting against the natural idols of the human heart to have control and to have an escape. Far too often when real world becomes hard, The screen world becomes easy and people fall into phones and they fall into patterns of life. And there's even a country song, right? I'm so much cooler online. The whole thing for the song is that on the online, I'm 6'5", right? I'm awesome. But in real life, he's short and he's like a programmer or something. So I've made a whole show of myself on the internet because I have a better life out there. That's not true of us because we realize we're in relationship with the creator God of the universe, and he has given us a purpose, an eternally impactful purpose, far more better than something on a phone. And then T, the last one here of our habit is to take time to learn about tech before you give it to your children. This takes a lot of time and energy, but is well worth it. Many apps are not what they appear to be. So things called vault apps. You can look them up and see what they're called. Many of them they take the form of a calculator, right? And so you look on your kid's phone or their iPad and you would see a calculator logo, but if you click on it, it has a password. And most calculators don't need passwords because it's a calculator, right? But this one needs a passcode because it's a vault app. And you enter in the passcode and then you have a vault of storage of whatever images you don't want people to see. I know this because my friend had one on his phone and I didn't know what it was. And you get in there, they're far more popular now, or anonymous chat sites. A little bugaboo of mine is Snapchat. Why encourage people to use a app that by definition, you take pictures for them to disappear? Well, what does that teach? This is good because I can send something that will disappear. Does stuff disappear online? No, we leave footprints everywhere we go. That's why you and I, if we're here talking and I mention a particular book or commentary enough times, you know what you're going to have on your Amazon feeds when you go home? That book. Right? Because it feeds us what it believes that we want, right? And we just have to be very, very careful just to say we need to know that these things may not be what they seem. There's anonymous chats. What's the purpose? What's the function of this particular app? If the function of Snapchat is to take pictures that quickly disappear, what do you think it's going to be used for? There's a function, thankfully, that I think has actually been banned now, but it's called GeoSnap. And if you had your location settings on, anyone in your vicinity could send you a picture. Didn't have to have approval. They didn't have to be in your contacts. And that was something that came into the phone, into the app. You had to go in and turn it off yourself. Even things like being on Instagram. If you go on Instagram, if you are a young man on Instagram, you are targeted by algorithms to send you pornographic images. I know that because that was happening to me a lot, and I don't like that. I'm not interested in that. So I thought, I'm going to run an experiment. I went on Instagram and I changed my gender to being a girl. And you know what I have not gotten since then? Any pornographic DMs, directed messages to me. It's out there. It's more targeted than it has ever been. These apps may not be what they seem, so you just have to be wise. That's why it's good for you to download an app and play with it first. Use it how it's intended to be used. And so watch what your child may come into, your grandchild or what else, what they might be exposed to if you just play down the app, just play the game. And there may be some things, I'll remember this, and if my dad's listening to this, sorry, Dad, but there was a time we were growing up and I was playing a game called The Legend of Zelda. You guys know the Zelda games? I was a big fan of those back in the day. And in this game, there'd be couriers who would like bring you messages from fake characters. Well, my dad thought that was a chat feature, that someone else was sending me messages from online. And it didn't matter how many times I told him, Dad, that's not how that works. He said, yes, it is. And he took it away. I was very, very sad because that is not how that works, right? But that's why you play that and say, hey, what is this feature? Have a conversation. What is this meant to be? Is this wise for you to have something that's open that other people can message you that mom and dad don't know? And your kids say, well, that's probably not very smart. And now we have a conversation. Obviously, if my dad, sorry again, Dad, if you're listening, if he was listening and if he would have known that's not what this game is for, because he didn't understand technology. We don't understand it as much as our children do. Somehow they've learned it better. My kids, you give them my phone and they can figure stuff out. I don't even know how they've done it. They don't even play with them that often, but it's just intuitive. So we got to know, what is this? What is it for? How can we be using this? Play with it for a week, right? This is something, again, that Protect Young Eyes recommends all the time. Download the app, use it for 7 days, and see if it's appropriate for your child. Easy. You say, I don't have time to do that. If your child has time to play the game, you have time to look through it. It's just that important. Again, parenting. Would you let anyone in the world come into your front door? No. So don't let anyone in the world come into your child's phone or their smart device, right? And play with those things with your children, right? Find a game that you guys can play together. Find movies that you can watch together, right? So pizza and a movie night is fun. It's an easy thing to do. Relaxes you, spends time with the family, right? These things are easy things to do, but you are with them. It's a family endeavor. Then if you come across something and you say, guys, this is something that would not glorify God, is it? Say, no, it's not, Mom. No, it's not, Dad. You say, all right, so that means we need to get rid of it. And that stinks, but we need to glorify God. And now it's a teaching opportunity. It's not you stumbling on them doing something wrong and now you're blaming them for it when they didn't know that they were doing it either. Now you're with them. Now you're creating that environment where they know they can be exposed to something they weren't supposed to see and they can talk to you because they did it with you. We need to do this with our children. So kids are tech savvy, right? So we need to know how to outsmart them. There's just a reality in which they know what they're doing, and we need to make sure that we do too. I mentioned this, and again, I sent this out to Pastor Andrew. I don't know if you printed them off, but I can send you a link to it too if it's easier just to email out to everyone. But I would just highly recommend reading this. AI is becoming the fastest growing and one of the most used tools for children. I cannot recommend this article enough. It tells you the story of the young man who ended up taking his own life because of an AI companion. And just for me, AI just becomes a replacement for parents and for God. Right? It becomes a replacement of authority, a replacement of a talking partner, a replacement of someone I bounce my ideas off of. But also AI, I believe, brings out the worst and appeals to the worst in us. It appeals to our laziness. It appeals to our desire for control. Right? This AI that would appeal to me to say, give me a relationship that always gives me what I want. That's what these AI companions are often used for, is for romantic companions. What is their romance with a computer? And that's why we have to create a real world, right? Reality where God has given us these things that are real, because there's a fake world out there that wants to be sold to our children as real. And we need to make sure that we're ahead of the game and we're there to help them. So again, if you want to read that article, you can scan it there. If you're a paper article person, I can find a way to get that to you. And I would just highly, highly recommend reading that. A couple things just here quickly that Protecting Lives would recommend that I would too is learning your routers, learning what's there and how you access the internet. This is a crucial distinction here. I like to say this is kind of like the entry ramp onto the highway, right? Your router kind of functions as your on-ramp to the highway. If you can control the on-ramp to the highway, you can control what gets on the highway and what doesn't. So if you have a router that you're able to stop inappropriate material from getting on, a lot of routers today, you can even buy them that have a function where you can turn off the internet at night and you can go full, like, what's some of the old family TV shows that we used to watch, like Night John Boy, right? And they're just that's how you go to bed at night. It's like you're all the way back in the day. And you can go full, Little House on the Prairie style at bedtime with no internet. And you can shut that off. You can shut off particular devices that are accessing the internet. You can see if they try to get back on, right? There's all of these things that are made available, and those things are available through the router. So Protecting Eyes will often, they recommend things like Bark or the Griffin routers. The Griffin routers here are excellent. They give you the ability to manage every device. So a Griffin router is a fantastic resource. Again, if you're not catching all this, just go to Protect Young Eyes website. They have all of this that is very, very available. And then also, if you're looking for devices for children, then when they say, what's the way to get on the right track, is using things like Gab or Bark. They're made for kids. They do not have the texting and calling principles, the same things, are internet accessing principles that a normal smartphone would do, but they do have those with the parent. A smartwatch that gives you location settings, so you don't have to buy an AirTag from Apple, which they never work to begin with, so don't waste your money on an AirTag. But these things that just give you the ability to have a right step to when it comes to using technology in a way that makes sense. Those are some of those. And then finding software, I highly recommend Covenant Eyes. For families, I would recommend something called Canopy. Canopy functions a lot if you have a lot of devices. So if you have computers, iPads, smartphones, and you're looking for something that acts like a canopy. Over all of that, Canopy is a great resource. Covenant Eyes is great for one-to-one accountability. So if you have a teenage son who may be struggling with pornography, finding would be best if a father is the one who's doing that first, but having an accountability partner with something like Covenant Eyes that creates and is really pushing for a covenant relationship that you and another person are committing to no longer follow the sin, and that creates really good accountability, something that is utilized by myself, with another pastor friend of mine, and with other men in my life. Covenant Eyes is a fantastic resource. It just makes sense. If technology has the power for as much good as it does, it also then has the flip side of the power for as much bad as we can see it happening. So Christians, we just need to be smart. We don't need to be afraid. And there's no reason for us to be afraid. There's a sovereign God who knew about the smartphone before anything existed, right? If we believe what we believe to be true about God, he is in that much control. So we can have faith, but we need to be wise, right? Wise as serpents, but as innocent as doves, right? There's biblical principles that we can apply right into this stuff, and it makes a whole lot of sense, but we just need to not be afraid of it. Right? There's no reason to fear because we have a God who is in control. So, do I have time for questions, Andrew? I don't know what my time was to be done. I tried to go as fast as I could through all of that. You guys have any questions for me? I'm not the expert on all of this. There are very few people that are the expert on all of this. But I try to be as informed as possible as a parent and as a pastor. It's my job to do this. So I want to be a resource to you, but I can't guarantee I can answer every single one of your questions, but I'll do my best if I can. Any questions from you guys? Everyone like, don't scratch your face, don't itch. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. I think a lot of schools, thankfully, now have AI detection software. So I know Northview Public Schools has it up by us. Rockford Public Schools has it up by us, where they put papers through an algorithm and it can detect AI type writing. I know our seminary that Josiah and I are in, they have the AI detecting smart software as well. And so I think as much as it's being used, I think there's a certain level of like, hey, we can't let this get into academics, but into the personal and the psychological, there's not nearly as much interest, which is terrifying to me because why would you want a computer to be your counselor? Right? Your counselor should be the word of God and another person, right? But so I think there's a lot in the academic sphere where it is outlawed by many schools. If they discover you will be, I think we even get kicked out of our seminary program if they find us using it. But I know in schools they fail the paper. So again, and that's why I mentioned that I think it brings out the worst in us. I think it brings out our laziness. We want to just write and then let it correct us and not develop an actual skill. Which we need to have. We need to be those who create, not those who just solely consume. I think AI has a tendency to turn us into consumers, not creators. And so, yeah, I would say, I mean, it's not is it the worst thing in the world? It could be, depending on how you use it, but it just depends on what do you want it for? Why would you use something like that? And really evaluate, why am I using a tool like this that wants to function as God, right? It says, I can research everything you need to know and I can give you the answer. I am the authority on this topic. Try to be careful with something like that would claim authority and maybe psychological or a counselor function. That's something that should be very skeptical of when it doesn't bear the image of God. Any other thoughts or questions? I didn't say I'm not the expert, so you wouldn't ask me questions, by the way. That was just, if you came with a real stumper, I didn't want you to be like, why did we bring this guy in here? You may be asking yourself that already anyway, so. Anything else? Would you mind if I pray before we close here? I think it's just so important that we take all this stuff to the Lord in prayer. Can we have a sovereign God who's in control of all of this, so we need not fear. We can walk in faith. So let's pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, you are a great God. You are the almighty, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent God of the universe. Lord, you are the source of all life, of all truth, all hope, all peace, all comfort. God, when we see you like that, and when we believe that you are as good as you say you are, Lord, our hearts are tuned to worship you. So, Lord, again, tune our hearts to sing your praise. Lord, our hearts are so prone to idolatry. They just are. And so, Lord, may we as a new generation rise up as a generation of the church and say, this technology we have is not a tool to be afraid of, but it's something that by faith we can utilize for furthering the kingdom of God. but we need to protect ourselves. So Lord, help us to protect our own hearts. Lord, we ask that you would protect our hearts, protect the hearts and the minds of the young children that are represented by the families in this room, by the teenagers represented by the families in this room, or that you would protect them from just the many different ways that technology can become an idol, but also can be a tool of the enemy to hurt and to harm those who are loved by God. So Lord, help us as we as people of God, try to step up and equip others and be equipped ourselves, Lord, that we would take this information and we would utilize it for your glory, and that we would allow it to fill us with knowledge and with wisdom, but Lord, also with faith and gratitude for you, our great God. We pray this in Christ's name. Amen.